this is why I get overwhelmed, because I have a control thing where I am a perfectionist thing where I want to know every little step of the way before
Yeah.
I start. That stops me before I even get going and then stresses me out along the way. Versus,
Hey, Miles.
hey, Bill.
So you said what you want, and then you cleaned your office and your desktop, and you're all ready to like start putting reminders in your phone and actions in your calendar. Well, you're ready. You're probably already done.
That's the hardest part, right? Maybe.
I don't know. It feels like sometimes whatever we want, whatever we say we want, can be overwhelming. It can be big. If I say I want to double my revenue, I don't know how to do that. If I knew how to do that, I would have done it already.
Yeah. So how would you eat an elephant? You've heard this, right?
Yeah, one bite at a time, right? But that's hard to do. I mean, we do that. I'm doing it right now. Like I am. I have this. I have something I want, and I even have some coaching and a plan for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But my brain keeps seeing. It keeps doing two things. One, it can't make a direct connection between the actions I'm currently taking and what I want. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It says, yeah, you can do all that, but it probably won't work. Or what if it doesn't work, or whatever, or it's not going to work fast enough, or any of the million other terrible things it says to me. I swear to God, I woke up this morning and my brain is like, it's like a traffic jam of cars all piled up at the toll plaza waiting to go through the Lincoln Tunnel. And it's bumper to bumper. They're all waiting for their turn to say the next stupid, awful, undermining thing to me.
Mm.
And that's what we do. Oftentimes, we're past that point already in the new year where we got all excited about, hey, this is what I want to create this year. And I don't know about you, but we get a couple of weeks into that, and then it just seems hard. Then it's just a slog. Then it's like, well, how am I going to do that? And when am I going to see results? And what's actually going to happen? And the bigness of it and all there is to do starts to become overwhelming.
Bill, you got me thinking about like this podcast, for example. And the reason that it's worked, the reason we're sitting here right now and haven't given up and crossed the 100 mark and have no even question that we're going to get to 200. And if we don't, great. I don't care, because all I know is right now we are,
Right.
That's all that my reality is. So the reason this works is because, well, first of all, we do know what we want with this. We talk about it frequently. We like check in just to make sure we know what we want. And then we set up our system and our structure and our environment. Part of like the lights that I have and the way my bookshelf, I've been tinkering with this environment to make it look better a little bit on camera. And then we have a simple list of guests that we want. We have all the things that are just working for us that are really simple, so that all we have to do is show up, put it out, and we don't miss anything. So we've come this far. It's been over 2 years. Like, it's that simple. So I guess what I'm getting at here is you have to almost just get to a point where you're not even thinking about it. And you're just doing it and showing up. And then it's kind of just that simple sometimes.
I'm going to say it a different way. I think we get in trouble. Like if I say, like I have one of my email addresses. The front of it is Willie B. Small, because my middle initial is B. My last name is Small, right? Mm-hmm. And I remember years ago, I used that address for a client, and they got on me about will he be small, which I just think is funny,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you know, like, is it a question? Will he be small, or is it a name? What is it? I just think it's funny, right? Um, but they got on me about it. Like, well, you're big, you should be playing big. You should be expensive, or whatever. And I
Yeah.
was, I had some responses I didn't say to that, but because I was like, okay, it's just an email address, but all right. Uh, but I get the point. People often tell us, you got to think big, right?
Mhm.
You got to think big. You got to think expansive. And I think what you just said makes me want to frame it as play big and think small. Miles and I don't always do very well with discipline, consistency, and grinding our way through the creative process.
We're also tripped up with things like overwhelm, imposter syndrome, perfectionism, and lone wolf syndrome on a weekly basis, and it's not a good feeling.
So a couple years ago, we created The Box to solve our own problem. The Box is a container and community for creatives to stay accountable, do the work, and actually finish what they started. We help you prioritize your projects and create a box around it.
We co work twice a week for 90 minutes and support you in bringing projects to the finish line. It's not teaching you anything new, it's giving you the structure to focus and create with what you already have.
Because amazing things happen on the other side of finished. Come try it out and see how it feels at theboxcommunity.com.
Ooh,
So
I
play
like that.
big, play a big game, right? But when it comes time to do something, I have to anyway, think small. I got to think about what's the next action to take. Because when I get too far ahead of myself, I get lost.
Mm,
I get overwhelmed, I get off the track, and I don't, quite frankly, don't want to do anything. And that's also when all the cars start piling up,
yeah.
at my toll plaza, right? Because I've
Yeah.
gotten ahead of myself. I've started to think about the end instead of what's next.
Man, Bill, that's really good. So instead of having a traffic jam of thoughts, you're just letting one or two thoughts in at a time and you're not worrying about the thousands of cars to come. Thinking, so playing big, thinking small.
Yeah, play big, think small.
I really like that. We should define what do you mean by play big?
I think we talked about it a couple episodes ago. When you say what you want, you can't do it from a place of trying to figure it out ahead of time, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what has us play small. That's what has us pick easy things to accomplish
Right.
and stuff like that. Is we start to try to figure it out. If you can't figure it out, well, then you're not going to say it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be bigger than that. I think you have to play big. If you're growing a business, if you're a creator, if you're out there making stuff or doing whatever, if possible, you want to think big. You want to play a big game. You want to create something beyond what you know, if that makes
There,
sense.
yeah. I
Like if
love
I
that because
say I want to double my revenue, I'm just using it as an example because a lot of people have revenue goals, right? But if I
yeah,
say that, the next thought is I don't know how to do that.
right.
Now, I
Good.
think it's probably possible, but I don't know how to do that. So that feels to me like I'm playing big. That's a big game to me.
Because you might have to change who you will have to change who you are, your maybe the way you think, maybe try some things you've never tried before,
I'm going to have to
which
do some things that I haven't done before yet.
which this is such a great example because this is why I get overwhelmed because I have a control thing where I and a perfectionist thing where I want to know every little step of the way before
Yeah.
I start. And that stops me before I even get going and then
Yeah.
stresses me out along the way versus let me just slow down. What's the first thing I can do and know that there's room for magic. There's room for I'm going to change and then the answer is going to appear, right? And like intuition plays a role in this. So we're leaving
Yeah.
room for all that and we're moving through it with, I guess, also a little bit of it is like trusting the process, trusting
I think a
yourself.
lot of it is trust and trusting the process. And, even when I think most of the time you can, whether you do it by yourself or you have help, you can make a plan. You can say, here's the path. But you got to
Mm-hmm.
know two things. One, all there is to do on that path is the next thing. When you get ahead of it, you get ahead of the next thing, that's where you get in trouble. Or also knowing that however you think that path is going to go, whatever it looks like here, that's probably not how it's going to go. So you can't get attached to it. It's going to go a different way. It's just a guide. It's a map. It's a place to start. It's a way to be able to say, okay, here's the next thing to do.
Nice. And playing small would be, you would kind of just know it when you felt it. It would be probably too, it might be a little boring for you. It might be, there's no like fear or courage. There's no courage needed to do it. There's no change needed to do it. It's something you can do, which is great. But if you're wanting to play big and change and have bigger results, then you're going to need to play big. It's also like getting in the arena. Like if you're thinking about, if you're thinking, sorry, if you're playing small, then you're probably not even going to need to get in the arena,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Hmm.
And playing small is easy.
Yeah.
It just is. Playing small is easy. It's comfortable. We can all do
Hmm.
that. Playing big it's just uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable. And maybe that's part of what happens with the overwhelm too, is that if you're playing a big game, even if you've knocked it down into small steps, it's still uncomfortable because oftentimes those steps are different than what you've been doing, right?
Hmm.
And maybe they challenge you in some way. Maybe you have to talk to people a different way. Maybe you have to put yourself out in the world a different way, or create something a different way. And it's damn uncomfortable. So
Yeah.
if you get sucked up in the uncomfortable, and can't see why anymore you're doing that, like you're not really connected to the what you said you wanted, or if you just start getting all attached to it, like I think I go through so many different spaces with it, from I don't see how it's going to happen to I need it to happen yesterday to can I skip over this part? Is there some easier way to do this? To, oh, look, I'm not doing any of it right now. I'm failing already. To, just all of those places.
Yeah.
Um, and again, I think that's all inside the umbrella of this is what happens when you play big. And the only way for me to wrangle all that is to think small, to push that stuff out or let it pass, let it be, do it its thing, but put my attention on the next thing there is to do and when I'm going to do it, and just do that.
Mm. One of the, I think one of the easiest ways to do that is, well, two things: picking a recipe, which we always talk about, because if you're, it's almost like there is some structure within that lack of structure,
Yeah.
and there's a recipe you can follow, so you just know what the next step is. You don't have to. You're really just trying to eliminate. You get all your thinking done, enough thinking to get you started, and then you're kind of eliminating thinking. At least in my world, that's what I need to do, and just
Yeah,
get to
that's
the
why
action
that's why
part.
I say think small. You know what I mean? Keep your attention small. Keep it in
Yeah.
what's next instead of trying to encompass the whole thing or figure anything
Yeah.
out.
Okay. What are some other ways to think? small? Like, are there any examples or real life things that poke holes in that and make you start thinking big and push you off course?
I think just the nature of when you play a big game and it's uncomfortable. I think the nature of that is always pushing at you. It's always pushing at you. It's the reason that people don't make it. That they don't
Yeah.
achieve whatever that next big thing is. It's certainly why I have. I think I just get uncomfortable, and maybe that has me take my foot off the gas a little bit. Maybe it has me only go so far in changing things or doing whatever I need to do next.
Mm-hmm.
And or maybe it just plain makes me quit because it's uncomfortable. So I talk myself out of it, like, oh, this isn't a fit, or whatever, just because it's uncomfortable. But I think that whole thinking small idea, and you can say it a lot of different ways. Thinking small, chunking. They talk about chunking things out into small bites or whatever, or eating the elephant, is a primary way to combat that uncomfortableness. Okay, I can't figure the whole thing out, and I don't know how long it's going to take. But I said this is what I want, and I said I was going to do the things that I need to do. What's next? And then for me, I have to go one step further, and I know what's next. When am I going to take that particular action?
Yeah.
Because that can be a moving target in my life. I think I'm going to do that this afternoon, but then 3 other things happen before that. And the next thing you know, it's nighttime and I'm done. And then I have to shift it around, which is okay as long as I actually put it somewhere again and say, this is when I'm going to do it. Otherwise, it just becomes this useless stick running around in my head that's beating me. Hey, you need to do this thing. Bang. Hey, you need to do this thing. Whack. Hey,
Yeah. That's a great point. It does need to live in your calendar or in your schedule.
Something. And
Otherwise,
that's where the whole structure thing comes in, right?
Yeah.
Set yourself up for success. Yeah.
Just eliminate the thinking and the decision making and the excuses and just put it into reality and then stick with it. And you do that enough times and you'll find a rhythm, a cadence to where you don't even those holes in your process that let the overwhelm in, let all those cars into your tunnel, too many, that becomes less frequent over time with practice. And then next thing you know, you're just moving and grooving.
Yeah. And look, when it comes to traffic jams, and, they're like everything else. There's a time of day where there's a traffic jam, and then a couple hours later, it lightens up, and there's less cars. That wraps another episode of The Subtle Art of Not Yelling, your home for creative growth.
If our words have resonated with you, subscribe, share, and leave us a review. It means a lot and helps us reach more creative entrepreneurs.
Join us next week as we continue to explore the art of quietly becoming a creative superpower and thriving without yelling.
Until then, keep nurturing your ideas, honing your craft, and shipping your work.
Because amazing things happen on the other side of finished.